Okay, welcome to the meeting of the State of Hawaii Board of Agriculture. I am Chair Sharon Hurd. Prior to calling the meeting to order, Jason will explain how the public can participate in this hybrid meeting, which can be accessed by video conference, telephone, or in person.
As an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted during the meeting, unless you are providing testimony. For each agenda item you wish to testify on, please click the Raise Hand button found on your Zoom screen. Board staff will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chair, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking in order to prevent audio feedback. When testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If you are dialing in by phone, when the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. Thank you.
Testifiers are reminded that there is a 2-minute limit per testimony per agenda item. Okay, calling the meeting to order. 9:07 in the morning. We're going to do a roll call vote of the members that are here. Make sure we have a quorum. I will take a roll call of the board members present. When your name is called, please indicate your presence with a here or present and state who. If anyone over the age of 18 is present in the room with you. This also serves as a roll call vote. For each subsequent vote, I will ask if there are any objections or recusals. If there are none, then the motion will be approved on the same basis as this initial roll call. Sharon Hurd, present. Deputy Director Ryan Kanakaole is excused. Dr. Parwinder Grewal.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Mark Takimoto.
Present, and I'm in the ADC office, so staff walks around.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Diane Lay.
Present, and no one over the age of 18 is with me.
Aha. Thank you. Nathaniel Oswald.
Here, alone.
Thank you. Fred Cowell.
Present and painfully alone.
Randy Cabral.
Good morning, present and alone.
Thank you. And Young.
Present and alone. Morning.
Morning. James Gomes.
Aloha kakayaka, present and alone.
Okay, we're moving on to the approval of the minutes of the November 26, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion to approve the November 26 meetings of the minute? No.
So moved, Jimmy.
What was that, Jimmy?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second, Parvinder.
Dr. Gruwa, thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony? Thank you, Jason. Board discussion? Hearing none, calling for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals? Hearing none, the motion to approve the minutes is approved. Communications from divisions and administration. Starting with item 4A, from the Agricultural Resource Management Division. Item 1, request for acceptance of annual lease rent as determined by independent appraisal for rent reopenings for various lots located statewide. TMK numbers 14-1-009 266 211-003 28-2 2-7-008-015 252-004-123 419-001-011 428022006. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Second,
Second.
thank you, Randy. Presentation by staff. Is Randy on Zoom? Oh, there's Randy.
Okay, let's see.
Randy, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm trying to get my video up. Give me just one quick minute.
You got it.
Can you guys see me now? Good morning.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, good morning, Chair, members of the board. I am Brandy Ayo, Property Manager with the ARM Division on the Big Island. Okay, so pursuant to the provisions of the HAR, the Board of Agriculture is required to establish and approve annual lease rentals by independent appraisals for conversions of leases and reopenings of base and additional rentals for existing leases in the Ag Park and non-Ag lands programs. The Department of Agriculture contracted ACM consultants to determine the fair market rents of various Ag Park and non-Ag Park land leases for rents reopened on various dates and lease conversions. ACM consultants recently completed the appraisal reports, and the new lease rents are presented in the table attached as Exhibit A. A location map of the parcel is also attached as Exhibit B. Staff believes the new rental rates are fair and reflect the current market conditions for the ag leases. Accordingly, staff recommends that the board accept the new rental values as determined by ACM consultants. Staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture accept the fair market rentals for the various Ag Park and non-Ag Park lands leases as listed in Exhibit A. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Board discussion? I see Jimmy.
Yes, do we know, I don't see it here on the summary of, the conclusions of all the islands that we have. How long have these leases been in effect? I don't have it doesn't have any time frame like back from 2000 or, prior to that. I would like to know that.
Okay, I would have to look up that information and get that to you.
Okay, that'll be great.
So you want
And-
for each, you would like the start and end date for the lease period for each of the leases and revocable permits stated on this exhibit?
That is correct.
Okay, will do.
And the other side is this appraised value, is it per acre or per annual?
Can you repeat that again? I can barely hear you guys.
The appraised value that you have here that ACM did, is it per acre or this is a total?
That's the total. That's the annual lease
Per
rental.
annum, that's the
Yeah.
annual lease.
Yes.
My last question is, on the island of Maui, there's a deposition, diversified agriculture for just 1.8 acres.
Mm-hmm.
How do we calculate that 4,808?
That would have to be a question for the appraiser. Is ACM online? Can somebody confirm if Ted is online?
I don't see it.
Do you see any ACM consultants by any chance?
No.
Okay. I'm not the appraiser, so I wouldn't be able to answer that question. But if you'd like, I can ask Ted for that information and get that to you as well.
I'll call Ted direct. I know
Okay.
him personally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jimmy,
Yes,
while that is a very, convenient, way to get the information you seek, because we're in a public forum, we're going to ask that you, pass that information on so we can make it available to the whole board.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Or better yet, Sharon, you guys find out and then you can pass it on to the whole board.
Can do.
All right, thank you.
Okay, recognize, Jimmy, yep, so Diane.
Thank you, Chair. Brandy?
Yes.
It's nice to see that several of these leases are actually reducing in rent. And I was just wondering, you know, that's been an issue for the board for a while now of increasing rents for our producers. And so I was just wondering if you had any insights. Is this being driven by market prices in the area or specific guidance that's been given to the appraiser? Do you have any?
No, it's just by the
insight?
market.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Calling for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals? None. Taking the vote. Oh, okay. Go ahead. You got a motion or? Yep. Jimmy and then you made the motion. Jimmy made the motion and I think Randy might have seconded it. Okay. If it's anonymous, then we don't need to. Okay. I've been advised that since it's unanimous, we do not need to take a vote. Are there any objections or recusals? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you. Unanimously. Going on to item 2. Request approval for conversion of revocable permit number S-7732 to a new general lease for G&C Freitas Ranch Incorporated, FKA George Freitas Dairy Incorporated, TMK 355007011, portion of government lands of Hualua, North Kohala Island of Hawaii. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So move, Jimmy.
Jimmy, and may I have a second?
Second, Diane.
Thank you, Diane. Presentation by staff.
Okay, George Freitas Dairy Inc. was issued revocable permit number S-7732 by the Board of Land and Natural Resources in 2011 for pasture purposes. On April 11, 2013, the revocable permit was transferred to the Department of Agriculture by Governor's Executive Order number 4430. Since obtaining the revocable permit in 2011, George Freitas Dairy has utilized the subject property for pasture purposes. In 2018, the permittee changed their entity name from George Freitas Dairy Inc. to G&C Freitas Ranch Inc. G&C Freitas Ranch requests approval to convert the month-to-month revocable permit to a new 35-year non-ag park lands lease pursuant to the HAR and HRS. The conversion of the month-to-month permit will provide G&C Freitas Ranch with needed stability to grow their current cattle operation and complete improvements to the property. In issuing the new converted lease, the requirements of the HAR states that the department shall require an appraisal of the parcel, impose other lease terms, provisions, restrictions, and conditions as provided in these chapters as may be required to protect the state's interest, require the payment of annual lease rent by appraisal and a premium computed at 25% of the annual base rent for each year of lease equal to the number of years that a person occupied the land, but not to exceed 7 years, and require those qualifying under subsection A to meet the bona fide farmer criteria as defined in the HAR. An appraisal has been conducted pursuant to the HAR for the purpose of determining the fair market rental for the subject parcel. Upon the commencement of the lease, the annual base rental was appraised at $1,240 for the initial lease term. Additionally, commensurate with the administrative rules, the lessee will pay a premium equal to 25% of the annual base rental for the new lease period, not to exceed 7 years for the commencement of the converted lease term. Further, the board and permittee mutually agreed to cancel the existing revocable permit number 7732, subject to the execution of the converted general lease documenting the effective date. Staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture approve the following. Number 1, find that by allowing the conversion of this revocable permit to a new long-term lease, the state would realize greater returns and reduce disruptions to current ongoing farming operations and is therefore in the public's interest. 2, approve the permittee's request to convert revocable permit 7732 to a new non-ag park lands lease of not more than 35 years for the initial lease term, subject to the conversions provisions of the HAR, with rent reopenings at the expiration of the 15th and 25th years. 3, accept the fair market base rental rate of $1,240 per year. And 4, approve the mutual cancellation of revocable permit 7732, subject to the execution of the effective date of the new general lease. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
No hands.
No hands. Anyone in the room? No? Okay. Board discussion. Randy?
Yeah, I have a question, Brandy. Is this conversion open to a 65-year lease, or it's limited to 35?
Well, we generally, as a practice, we do it 35 years, but it is, it really is up to the board as well as the lessee if they want a longer lease term from the start.
When we have these conversions, are the lessees informed that they could get a 65-year lease? Because we seem to come up with this all the time and then we make the change. So
in this case, I did not have that discussion with them. But that is an option. Like you folks have approved it in the past where we just did a 65-year lease. But no, I did not personally have that conversation with this lessee about that.
Okay, because I don't know if they want a 65-year lease, so I don't know. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. This is Jimmy.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Randy, what improvements need to be completed on this parcel of property?
They want to do, I think they want to do more cross fencing, and I believe the lessee might be, or the permittee at the moment is online. She might be able to give you a little bit more information about exactly what it is that they want to do. But I believe there was some cross fencing, there was some clearing of the land. There's some trees that they want to get rid of, some invasive trees and stuff in some portions of the property that they want to clear. And I want to say there might be even some irrigation that they might want to bring to the property.
Okay. And another question is, they've been under DOA since 2013. That's correct, right? Just recently, or has it been some time that they've been asking to change this to convert it to month?
It's been a process. It's been a bit to get all the documentation in. So I would say within the last couple of years, we've been working with them to get this lease converted to a long-term lease.
Yes, and on Randy's statement, I would like to know if these people would want a 65-year lease or rather than a 35. I don't know who they are. I tried to reach out to our Cattlemen's Association, and they didn't have any track record either. So I don't know these people.
Is Georgette or Phyllis in the room or
Yes.
online?
Yes, I'll let them in.
Okay, thank you.
Aloha, good morning.
Aloha.
Good morning, Georgette.
Hi, this is Georgette Freitas from GNC Freitas Ranch.
Go ahead, Georgette.
Okay, yes, that would be awesome to get a 65-year lease. We've occupied or leased that property for many, many years, so we are familiar with the terrain and the different seasons, etc. So if there is a 65-year lease out there, I think that would be okay.
You would consider that, Georgette, so we've noted that. Is there another person on line to do
I think it's just me. My sister, Phyllis, and her husband, Ruben, they live on the Big Island. I'm actually on Oahu. And they've pretty much run the ranch, so they may be out in a pasture somewhere. However, we're in communication, and we've been, trying to obtain a long-term lease for this property, as Brandy mentioned, for a few years now. So we would appreciate converting it to 35 or 65. I mean, for us, we know how important land is to ranchers. So yeah, we'd appreciate it. 65 if you prefer. Yes.
Thank you, Georgette. We were hoping that there would be someone online to help us with that decision. But I'd like to just confirm with Brandy, Georgette is a lessee.
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I think with that information, we will ask the board to defer. Oh, I'm sorry.
You got
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Ian has a question.
I'm sorry. Yes, recognizing Ian Young.
Hi, Chair. I've talked a little bit about some of these in the past. Yeah, I think I'm with Jimmy and Randy in that, we want everyone, our lessees to be able to have access to INA for the, to the fullest extent of the law, what we can permit. Yeah. And on these Act 91s, there's the revocable permit piece, or some is just kind of sitting in limbo. And then there's also some who have had a long-term DLNR lease and then are able to convert to, a long-term D of Ag lease. Now, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I mean, it's legal, but we want to make sure that there's parity between the different lessees. So, just generally, I'm fully for this, but I think it would be good for us to take a look at a higher level on the kind of the landscape of what revocable permits are out there and what's still pending, to make sure that we can create a level playing field for all the the different tenants.
I totally agree, Ian.
Okay, thank you for that discussion. With that information, I will ask Jimmy, I believe you made the motion. Would you like to retract your motion?
No, that was Randy. Well, I made
Randy.
yes, I made the motion. I'm sorry. Yes, I would like to retract the motion and change that to a 65-year lease.
Okay, what we're going to do is defer the motion and take this up at the next meeting whenever the
Okay.
presentation is ready. Okay, are we okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
All right. Was someone saying something? Brandy?
No, I think the last time
Chair, could you
we did,
repeat? You said you're going to defer the motion?
Right, we'll defer the motion, or is that the right term?
Yeah, so they're gonna defer to the next meeting so that the public will have notice that it's gonna be a 65-year term. Because right now, the submittal says it's a 35-year term.
I think we've already set a precedence in the past where we've changed motions. It came in at 35 and we changed it to 65 at the meeting. So I don't understand why we need to defer.
I do not know. I would think, I don't know, to me, that's a substantive issue on the lease that might change somebody's, I mean, I don't know what Brian advised you.
We've done this before at the meeting 35. We made a motion for 65 and it flew.
I do recall that.
Okay,
I do recall that.
We've done several of them.
Sure. Okay, so
Yeah.
with that information and having had the experience of having it done before, do I need a new motion?
I mean, you guys, if you wanna do it, do it.
Okay, but do I need a new motion?
Yes.
Okay,
Because there's, they can make a motion.
we're going to change the motion. And the motion will now be.
Well, let them make the motion.
Oh,
Jimmy has to make the
Randy,
motion.
go ahead.
Randy, who was making the motion?
Randy, are you prepared to make a new motion?
Sure, I move that we approve a 65-year lease.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from the public?
No answer.
All righty, board discussion? Okay, I hear Diane's, yes, Diane.
I guess I'm kind of just struggling with the process here. I just want to make sure that we do, whatever we do, we do right. So I think, Jimmy, did you withdraw your motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and then we don't need to do a second to that or anything, right?
Not to withdraw.
Not to
Okay.
withdraw.
Okay, Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we're clean. Okay,
Well, we say clean.
So moved and seconded that the new motion is, that's in front of us is for a 65-year lease. There was no presentation, there was no, comment from the public. Okay, board,
They asked.
okay, and so board discussion besides Diane? No? Okay. Hearing, seeing none. Calling for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals? Okay, the motion is carried as the 65-year lease. Okay, moving on. Item 4A3. One moment, please. Request for approval for the transfer of public lands from the Department of Land and Natural Resources to the Department of Agriculture pursuant to Act 90 SLH 2003. Codified as Chapter 166E, Hawaii Revised Statutes, TMKs number 343010008, 343010002, 342008002, and 341006007, Island of Hawaii. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you.
second.
Second.
Diane.
Second.
Second by Diane. Presentation by staff.
Act 90 Sessions Laws of Hawaii 2003 established a non-ag park lands program within the Hawaii Department of Agriculture and was codified as Chapter 166E HRS. Under this program, the legislature found that certain public lands classified for agricultural use by the Department of Land and Natural Resources should be transferred to the HDOA for purposes in a manner consistent with the Hawaii State Constitution. The purpose of this chapter is to ensure the long-term productive use of public lands leased for available to be leased by the DLNR for agricultural purposes by allowing these lands to be transferred to the HDOA for leasing and management. In accordance with provisions of Act 90, the Board of Agriculture must mutually approve of the selected encumbrances for transfer. Staff verified compliance of 4 encumbrances by approval by BOA as listed in the attached Exhibit A. Staff reviewed the list of proposed encumbrances and performed its due diligence and recommends that the board approve the transfer of the 4 encumbrances as listed above. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
Yes, there's a hand raised. Clayton Kubo, if you can please state your name and or organization.
Oh, you guys got a copy on me?
Yes.
I'm in a Walmart parking lot. I had to sleep, yeah. That's the way it goes, Waiting Kubo, Waimea, Kauai. I just make sure I understand the Act 90 stuff, okay, but I just want to make sure that any agricultural land throughout the state of Hawaii does not go for rubbish dumps, okay, or other non-intended purposes. That's the main thing, because I understand they get a lot of discussions over here on Kauai about ADC lands, Agribusiness Development Corporation, which is the state, agricultural lands. Yep, but we have a lot of discussions over here on Kauai about a new rubbish dump right across of the road. That is not right. So taking DOFA lands, the LNR, and putting them as agriculture, it's cool, but make sure whatever agricultural lands gonna stay in agriculture, not rubbish dump, solar panels, get all kinds of stuff that is being done behind the back doors. And I understand that Doe Plantation is not state lands, but still putting on rubbish dump on Doe Plantation, Waihawa, I don't think that's a good idea because it's just what is that, above a aquifer, another red hill waiting to happen. I'm waiting on Chairperson Sharon Hurd. You know what one I'm waiting on? What agenda item is that?
I'm not, the pesticide branch is up next.
Okay, thank you very much. Mahalo,
Thank you,
aloha.
Clayton. Okay, Clayton, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone in the room that would like to give testimony? Thank you, please.
Thank you, Chair Hurd, members of the Board of Agriculture. My name is Nicole Galassi. I'm the Managing Director for the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. We are in strong support of this because since 2003, we've been waiting to get these lands transferred from DLNR to DOA. The reason? To keep ag lands and ag production. These leases are in ag production and they're making food, they're producing food for our community. The Deluzes, the Botellos, SC Ranch, they're all here today represented. They've all made improvements to the land. They've all have multiple generations on the land, some of them 4 at one time. And they need to be under DOA to make sure that they can continue to steward the land in this way. Thank you for considering these leases. We ask that you approve them for transfer from DLNR to DOA. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any more public discussion? Anyone in the room again? No, go ahead.
Randy, I have a question.
Randy, I'm sorry, there was someone in the room
Oh,
approaching
sorry.
you.
Okay, my name is Stephen DeLuz. I'm the owner of Ernest DeLuz Ranch. We are a 4th generation family ranch, and this land is very needed for us to continue our ranch. In 2005, we lost 21,000 acres to conservation. I get only 5,000 acres left from the LNR, and we can't afford to lose anymore. So I would really appreciate this thing going through and being accepted.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Very well spoken. Any other person in the room wishing to do testimony? Okay, so we're moving on to board discussion. Thank you, Randy.
Okay, Brandy, question. These 4 leases, were they already approved for transfer by BLNR?
No, not yet. So we needed to do our due diligence first, which we completed the process, and now we're coming before our board. And then the next step would be DLNR to make their determination as to what's going to come over.
Okay, because I thought some of this lease was on the list of no transfer from DLNR.
It was originally, and I guess there has been some negotiations back and forth, and we were notified by DLNR that they were willing to transfer these 4 leases listed below, or at least parts of them. So there still might be some negotiations going on behind the scenes, but yes, these have come up in conversation to be transferred over.
Okay, well, that's good news. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Randy, I'm going to add to that. You're absolutely right. They were on the portion of the list that was do not transfer, but through the advocacy of the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, who submitted letters for consideration to DLNR and other agencies, they were reconsidered, and these 4 leases are now on the table for transfer. So you're
Okay,
right.
thanks, Chair.
Okay, any other board discussion? Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Chair. Real fast, you know, to Mr. I think it's Kubo from Kauai, to Mr. Kubo's point, just for the ranchers, you know, we are trying to help you guys expedite this process, and thank you for your patience. And I will say, Department of Ag, you know, we have a different mindset from DNR, so I think you're in good hands. But you know, to Mr. Kubo's point, you know, there are other agricultural like appurtenant uses, yeah, for for agricultural land. And I think I would appreciate Brandy in a presentation, just lining some of those out if there are other existing uses besides just straight agriculture, so that the public can, know what we're receiving. And I give you an example, like rural ag. You go drive around Kohala Hamaku and stuff like that, right there. There'll be machine shop or garage or something like that, right? Because it's rural designation, and that's allowable. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that there's no surprises for the public when land comes over and it's not 100% strictly ag use. So
and a good point. It's a complex question, as you know. Could you state again what it is, what information you want? Because our planner right now is probably pulling his hair out thinking what, because there's a pertinent use at the state level, county level. So could you restate?
No. Just in the presentation, if there's land coming over from DLNR and there's any kind of grandfather non-agricultural use, just so that we know that's coming over. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Any other board discussion? Hearing, seeing none. Calling for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals?
Chair, was there a motion for this?
I believe there was, yeah, and I think Diane approved it and Ann might have seconded.
Jimmy moved it, Diane seconded.
Oh, Jimmy, you
Okay.
moved?
Okay.
Okay. And then, okay, so are we okay, Jimmy?
Yeah, we're okay. Call for the vote, please.
Calling for the vote. Any objections or recusals? Hearing none, the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you.
I have a question. How long do you have any idea how long before we get this back from DLNR?
Unfortunately, I don't have a timeline, but
Okay.
I will notify them today that the board has passed these 4, and then we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you, Brandy. Moving on to item B, Plant Industry Division, Pesticides Branch. Item 1. Request for preliminary approval of the proposed amendments to Chapter 4-66 Hawaii Administrative Rules necessary to comply with state certification plan updates with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and with Act 220, 2003-23, and 2, authorization for the chairperson to schedule public hearings and appoint 1 or more hearings officers in connection with the proposed amendments to Chapter 4-66. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy, and a second. Is there a second?
I'll take it.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, presentation by staff.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, board members. Greg Takashima, Pesticides Program Manager at the Pesticides Branch for the department. Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 466 was last updated on August 23rd of 2019 after passing Act 45 of the 29th legislative session in July of 2018. 2 events necessitated the update of HAR Chapter 466. The Pesticides Branch received approval for the state certification plan from the United States Environmental Protection Agency on November 28th of 2022. And Act 220 of the 32nd legislative session was passed on July 5th, 2023. The approved state certification plan requires replacing instances of shall to must to clarify what is required, not recommended, and match the language more widely used in federal law. Amendments to the certification plan of restricted use pesticides, or RUPs, applicators are necessary to comply with the US EPA approved state plan. US EPA approval of the state certification plan allows for the use of 1 set of rules needed to be followed to comply with both the state and federal government. Fines for violations of Hawaii Revised Statutes Chapter 149A have not increased for 23 years for commercial pesticide applicators and nearly 50 years for private pesticide applicators. Updates to the maximum civil and criminal penalties will reduce repeat violators and provide a more substantial deterrent for violating HRS Chapter 149A. An existing amendment authorizes the head of the Plant Industry Division to refer collections to the Department of the Attorney General, consistent with the current practice authorized by the Board of Agriculture. On October 2nd, 2024, the proposed amendments were discussed with the Governor's Advisory Committee on Pesticides. Comments were actually not accepted. This change. We determined that there was not approval and acceptance of the rules, the amended rules by the Advisory Committee. The minutes from the Advisory Committee are attached. The proposed amendments to Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 466, are attached in Ramsar format and may be viewed in person at 1428 South King Street, Honolulu, Hawaii 96814, or online at the link in the submittal. The recommendation by the Pesticides Branch of HDOA Plant Industry Division is that the board, number one, preliminarily approve the proposed rule amendments necessary to comply with state certification plan updates with the US EPA and with Act 220 of 2023. And number two, authorize the chairperson to schedule public hearings and appoint one or more hearings officers in connection with the proposed amendments to Chapter 466. I do want to reiterate that the proposed rule amendments are specific to, basically we're matching what's in the C.F.R. And we're updating the maximum penalties, civil penalties related to pesticide violations. So, and those were done through the legislature. So our statutes actually changed. We're just updating our rules to match the statutory requirement.
And could you tell us what C.F.R. means?
C.F.R. is the Code of Federal Regulations.
And I do have a question. Because of the change that the comments were not accepted, what they see online is the correct version.
In the submittal for the minutes, it does have the correct information, I believe. Yeah.
So everything other than that is correct.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Can't remember if I did a motion. Presentation by staff is done. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
Clayton Kubo, I'm gonna let you in. You have 2 minutes for your testimony.
Am I in?
Yes.
Yes, Clayton.
Okay, Clayton Kubo, Waimea, Kauai. For these repeat offenders, pesticide violations, bill that had happened, I think it was 2 years ago at the Capitol. Was basically too much repeat offenders. The list was like 60 or 70 pages. If I'm wrong, Greg, can you correct me? And each page maybe had an average of 12 repeat offenders on every page. You times that by 60 or 70, that is a lot of repeat offenders. So in a way, bottom line to this is this: if the repeat offenders no repeat, then hey, it's all good. But these guys continue to repeat. The last FOIA request from the Hawaii Department of Agriculture that I had submit what I had request had, I think, was 7 pages, and the one before that had 3 pages after the repeat offender bill became an act. So in a way, I've heard it all, going against the multi-billion-dollar seed companies since the year of 2000. If we had a chance to hash it out at the Capitol, okay, we had a chance. And to me, it is well overdue. And already, since this had take this long to at least come to you guys at the board, you know, look how much times that they repeat offend ever since. You know, my family and I have been impacted by pesticide drift, pesticide fumes, vapors for many years. And again, I am from the town of Waimea on the island of Kauai. So nobody need tell me that it's a figment of my imagination about being impacted. Mahalo for you guys' time, and I'll be listening in. Aloha.
Thank you, Clayton. Anyone else from the public wish to give testimony?
No other hands raised.
No other hands are raised. Moving on to board discussion, recognizing Jimmy Gomes. Jimmy, Jimmy, if you're talking,
You're muted, James.
Sorry. So when this goes out for public hearing, we would consider having public hearing in late afternoons, early evenings, so we have more participants that can attend and give us their mana'o. And the other thing that I have lastly is with this new regulations, do we have enough personnel for the enforcement? Or are we still recruiting and we still don't have personnel? That's the questions I have.
Sure. So yes, we can definitely make it in. I believe the last time they did the hearings, they did make it in the afternoon. Well, some of them on the neighbor islands were during the day. Some of them were in the afternoons and after work. So we will definitely take that into consideration. And for the staffing capacity, we do currently have one case prep staff on. We are currently in internal recruitment for the second position. So capacity will be coming on board very soon, hopefully within the next month or two.
Thank you.
Recognizing Randy Cabral.
Thanks, Chair. Greg, I have a couple questions. Does the proposed state rules exceed the requirement of C.F.R. or is it the same?
So they will be matching the C.F.R., basically the wording within the C.F.R. We also do have appendices that are links now, I believe, to the C.F.R.
We don't have appendices anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I'll just speak because I'm an attorney for you all. So we had met with EPA. They had requested this language changes into our rules to match the C.F.R. And then they also wanted to have, I guess, a copy of the C.F.R. so people could see them. But that became really too many pages longer than our actual rules. So we ended up putting links and we requested if that was fine and they said that's fine. So it's a little unusual, but within the text, we added links to the actual C.F.R. for any references to the C.F.R. in case they don't have a copy of the C.F.R., they can do that. But all the redlining changes we put in were because the EPA felt that our rules were not comporting appropriately with the C.F.R. and they weren't going to approve our certification plan without those changes.
Okay, second question, Greg. This part is kind of confusing to me and in 4-66-57, where it says an understanding of the labeling requirements that a certified applicator must be physically present at the site of the application. What does that actually mean? I'm not really sure. It's been a long time since I've had a certification. And so could you explain what that means? Because it's confusing to me.
Sure. So the certified applicator, basically, if the label requires it, the certified applicator does have to be on site or okay, so if the label requires it, the certified applicator does have to be on site. There are labels that allow for non-certified applicators to be immediately available. So that's where we allow certified applicators to not physically be there, but be in contact through phone or something that they can provide immediate direction for the non-certified applicators. So it really just depends on whether or not the label requires the certified applicator to be on premise.
Okay, it seems to me that the language in 4.6661, it's kind of saying the same thing, but it's a lot clearer to me. So anyway, something to consider. Okay, I appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. We're in compliance with EPA, but we will try to be in compliance with Randy Cabral. And you know, Greg,
Yes.
the immediate availability, can that be by video phone?
Yep. Really any means through communication or connectivity. That's really where it ends to ensure that you can immediately, right? Technically, you can use walkie-talkies as long as you're within range, right? So as long as there's communication available.
Yeah, that's pretty flexible. Okay, board Diane.
Thank you, Chair. Greg, two things. One, overall, I mean, I have no concern about certainly being in compliance with federal regs. So glad to see that, we're moving forward on a timely basis, and also for the fines, yeah, I think, we need to keep, on top of that on a more timely basis, and rather than, every half decade or so. I mean, half century. But I guess I had a couple questions, just for, the record is, so when penalties are assessed, who makes the recommendations and the approval? What's the process for that?
Okay, so our case development staff are the ones who make the initial recommendation for civil penalties. They do go through and they're provided to myself as the pesticide program manager first to ensure that it's appropriate. We also send it up to the plant industry administrator for approval, as well as the chair for any civil penalties. So yeah, it goes through multiple levels to ensure that it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Yeah, it's a multi-step. And then with respect to the advisory committee's review of the proposed rules, I understand that that was the meeting in October where you had a significant number of new committee members, and they may not have had the experience, or so. But I guess my question is, when I look at the minutes from that meeting, there were 4 ayes, 3 noes, one objected, and 1 abstained. So what were the concerns besides the ones that were I believe one committee member raised concerns about the increase in the penalties, that might impact the smaller producers, and then but obviously there's a range.
Yeah, so the discussion and the no votes were essentially all related to the increase in fines, the maximum penalties.
Okay, thank you.
And Scott did want to bring up.
My name is Scott Nishimoto, Program Compliance Officer with the Pesticides Branch. As far as the notice of violation review, I'd also like to add that the Attorney General reviews that as well prior to issuance. I'd also like to stress that these increases in penalty amounts are maximum penalty amounts. So there is no intention of starting at these penalty amounts for a first-time notice of violation. These are maximum penalty amounts that we are capped by per violation for the branch.
Yeah, and again,
thank you.
We're able to have some discretion in terms of, right, first violation, it'll be somewhere towards the minimum, and then we can also determine the severity of the violation. We can also use the number of instances, if there were any people harmed, if there were the environment was harmed, right? We have all of these things that we can take into consideration to raise and or lower the civil penalties.
This is Scott Nishimoto, Program Compliance Officer. I also like to add that the initial violation usually triggers a warning notice that carries no civil penalty. So in order for a violator to basically be fined, they're going to have to have a second violation for the notice of violation to receive a civil penalty amount. So an initial violation is not going to automatically trigger a civil penalty.
It's part of that educate before you regulate type of thinking, yeah. Bringing up a question that Diana had started, that Dan started with, Greg. When will the penalties be in effect?
So we do have to go through the hearings process, hopefully once approved. We'll go through each of the counties to ensure that we have appropriate comments from the public. Once we do that, we'll make amendments based on the comments were provided in the hearings. We'll do a hearings report. We will come back to you folks at the board to provide you with an update of what the comments were.
We also gotta go to small business.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. We do have to go to a small business review board, I believe prior to our hearings. Yeah, and after our hearings. And then once you folks make that secondary approval and small business review board makes that secondary approval, it'll go to governor's office. Chair gets to sign, governor gets to sign, then it gets sent to the lieutenant governor's office, and 10 days later, 12 days.
10 days after a governor's signature.
Yeah.
Unless you put a date.
Becomes force of law. So magic 8 ball looking into it, I would venture to say maybe around the fall, third, fourth quarter of this calendar year is when we're looking at.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to make everyone aware that this discussion does not mean that these rule changes will occur at this meeting. The rule changes occur with the process that takes us through the fall.
Correct.
Okay, any of the board discussion? I thought I saw Ann's hand up, but I guess it's not up anymore. And okay, seeing none, calling for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals? Hearing, seeing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item B2, the plant protein branch. This one is a request to allow the importation of 4 black-footed penguins, an animal on the list of restricted animals, Part B, by permit for exhibition by the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa, and to update permit conditions for the importation and possession of 4 African black-footed penguins, an animal on the list of restricted animals for exhibition by Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So move, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Grewal. Seconded by Dr. Grewal. Presentation by staff. And Jessica, if you could help me, could you say the genus and species?
Spheniscus demursus.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jessica.
Oh, good morning, Chairperson and members of the board. My name is Jessica Amira. I am the acting land vertebrate specialist for Plant Quarantine Branch. As Chair Hurd had said, this is a request to import 4 black-footed penguins, Spheniscus demursus, an animal on the restricted B list by permit for exhibition by the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa, and to update the permit conditions for importation and possession. The importer and the request was prepared by Povi Karisa Abni, the wildlife supervisor of the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa located in Lahaina, Maui. And they are planning to get their penguins from Richmond Zoo, Metro Richmond Zoo, which is located in Moseley, Virginia. Previously, sorry, if you can look at the PQB note on C2, previously the PQB has approved permit for Patricia Lonick at Hyatt Regency in Maui on November 10th, 1992 and December 1st, 1992 to import black-footed penguins, Spheniscus demersus, and Magellanic penguins, Spheniscus magellanicus, referred to attachments 1 and 2. African black-footed penguins, Spheniscus demersus, are on the list of restricted animals, Part B, and pursuant to Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 4-71, all species in the Sphenicidae may be imported into Hawaii for government use or private and commercial use, including research, zoological parks, or aquaculture production. Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa is currently seeking to obtain 4 new penguins because they are no longer viable. Their current penguins are no longer viable, so increase their genetic vitality. They are trying to import more penguins to reproduce and increase the number of penguins they currently have. They were recently accepted into the Zoological Association of America's Animal Management Program for African penguins, referred to attachment 3 for the memorandum. They also have obtained a captive bred wildlife permit through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and have registered their penguins with the AZA's regional stud book. They are also seeking to obtain these 4 new penguins in order to comply with AZA's minimum penguin population standard, a recommendation of 10 penguins for an animal enclosure of its size. Currently, they are the penguin. They have currently their penguin enclosure is located in the hotel lobby. It is surrounded by a 3-foot rock wall, completely surrounding the exhibit, as well as lock gate and bridge over the water area. They have over 150 security cameras and 24-hour staff to prevent any escape or harassment of the animals. Disease and pest exposure is minimal due to the design of the habit, and the penguins are not in contact with any of the public or anyone outside of their caretakers or the wildlife supervisor. They have also provided us a biosecurity manual for their facility based on the National Zoo Biosecurity Manual and Guidelines, if you refer to attachment 11. And due to the recent detection of avian influenza in the state, they have also provided an additional protocol for their birds, which you can refer to attachment 16, titled Higher Avian Disease Outbreak Plan. This request had been submitted to the advisory subcommittee for review, which requests the following. One, to recommend approval or disapproval to allow the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins, Spheniscus demersus, an animal on the list of restricted animals Part B by permit for exhibition by the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa, and 2, recommend approval or disapproval to update the permit conditions for the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins, Spheniscus demersus, an animal on the list of restricted animals Part B by permit for exhibition by the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa. It had gone to 6 of the subcommittee members, 4 of which responded in approval of both the request as well as for importation, as well as the update to the permit conditions. There was a note about from Dr. Maeda regarding avian influenza screening. So condition number 12A mandates the declaration confirming that the restricted articles test negative for Newcastle's and avian influenza within 14 days of prior to importation. And there was another question that had come up with Dr. McKinney regarding the AWA standards for exhibition of birds. The Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa received their updated USDA exhibitor license on July 18, 2004, which you can refer to attachment 15. The request was submitted to the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals at its meeting on October 11, 2024, held simultaneously in person in the PQB conference room located on 1849 Awiki Street and via the Zoom virtual meeting. During the meeting, the committee had recommended approval for the request 7-1. And sorry. Based off of the recommendations, comments for the advisory committee, subcommittee on land vertebrates and recommendation to approve by the advisory committee on plants and animals 721, the PQB is recommending the board approve this request and establish permit conditions for this request. Thank you so much. That ends my portion of the submittal. I believe Kobe is online to answer any questions you may have, as well as I'm here available. Yeah.
Is Kobe part of the public?
Kobe? Yeah, I think she might be part.
So does anyone from the public wish to give testimony? Okay. Oh.
Yes. We'll start in order. Testifiers, if you could please limit your testimony to 2 minutes. And state your name and organization, if any. We'll start with, I believe this is either a phone number or I'm not sure, but if you can please state your name. 1374731.
They hang up.
Do they know they're on?
Do they know they're on? Good question.
Are you able to hear me?
Oh, now we are. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Povi Carissa Abney, and I'm the wildlife supervisor at the Higher Regency Maui. I'm available for questions. I would also like to submit testimony if possible.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Okay. We focus on African penguins because we've been given a unique opportunity to make a difference in the world. 40 years ago, when the decision was made to house penguins, they were not an endangered species and were chosen because they could thrive in our similar tropical climate. But now that they are in our care, we have a responsibility to the colony living in Maui and also their declining wild counterparts. Only 1% of the original African penguin population remains, and at this rate, they could be functionally extinct by 2035. Our team has been certified and maintains all necessary permits to keep and breed African penguins. Going through these certifications requires a rigorous screening process that has taken us over 2 years to achieve. These management plans will ensure responsible breeding practices for generations to come. Because the population of penguins in our care has been geographically isolated for over 40 years, they are genetically unique and considered extremely valuable. In 1950, the Hawaiian nene was all but gone when a biologist named Peter Scott stepped in and saved them from extinction by breeding them in England. Nobody looks back criticizing this scientist for helping birds outside of England because, in his words, extinction is forever. We have a responsibility to prevent species extinction if it is in our power to do so. To all of our board members listening, you have the power and opportunity to save this penguin species from extinction. The plight of the endangered African penguin mirrors the struggles of our own native birds. Extinction is a worldwide issue, and as keepers of an endangered species, we have a responsibility to help educate the public. By sharing our penguin story, we give a voice to life-threatening issues that endangered birds are facing all around the world. We strongly believe by introducing our keiki to animals from around the world, we're inspiring them to dream big and think globally. Birds are an indicator species. The same loss of resources and habitat that affects them comes back to affect us. Animal habitats are windows to ecosystems around the world. There are no zoos in Maui, which mean many children on the island do not have an opportunity to see animals that live outside of Hawaii. We need to wrap it up. Okay. So we need to begin by recognizing the value of animal care facilities and the role they play in saving species. I'd like to thank everybody for considering our African penguins, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Very informative.
Next, Katie Prop. You can just state your name and organization.
Hello, I am Katie Propp. I am representing Penguins International, the only USA-based nonprofit supporting all 18 species of penguins. I'd like to speak on behalf of our positive experiences with Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa and their African penguin program. African penguins were uplisted this past October to a critically endangered species, and it is imperative now more than ever to share about their plight with the public through education programs and with conservation dollars. We've worked directly with Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa to highlight their African penguins through a conservation social media competition that went viral, reaching over 600,000 people across the world, including a feature on BBC showcasing these endangered species thriving in Hawaii. Through our partnership with Hyatt Regency Maui, we were able to co-teach virtual education programming to school districts in the USA that are unable to connect with penguins at zoos and aquariums, as well as share their African penguin paintings with the community to bid on during silent auctions, with funds going to support our South African partners at Sand Cobb and Dyer Island Conservation Trust. If Hyatt Regency Maui is unable to continue their African penguin programming, it would be a loss of funding to African penguin conservation programs, which desperately need our support as the species continues to dwindle in the wild. I hope you'll consider the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins for exhibition at Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa so they can continue to educate the community, maintain genetic diversity, support the field work being done to save them, and connect Hawaiians to penguins that otherwise wouldn't have exposure to this special animal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kathy. Kathy, if you can please state your name and organization.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Kathy Gogel. I'm president of Animal Rights Hawaii, one of the oldest animal rights organizations in the United States, founded in 1977. We oppose this. The hotel is a hotel. It's not a zoo. In fact, why did they let these animals breed themselves until they were so inbred that they could not continue? This is, it just isn't something that I believe Hawaii should be looking to. We should be showing animals that are endangered here in Hawaii and not at a hotel or spa. That's not an educational facility. We think this is very ill-timed. We understand that they recently joined ACA, and the species survival program is very, very important. However, there must be other places in the world that these animals can be bred and improve their chances of survival in the wild. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss this.
Thank you, Kathy.
Diane Pure, I'll let you in. If you can please state your name and organization.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Diane Pure. I obviously don't have anything checked on here correctly. I have a picture, but you cannot see it, obviously. My name is Diane Pure. I'm a resident of West Maui for the last 23 years. During that time, I have been a volunteer with the Lahaina school system as strictly a volunteer. I have brought students over the years. This is all they have. Most of these children lived on Lahaina Luna, and they hadn't been north of Cannery Mall, if you're familiar with West Maui. Now we're really limited now that we don't have Lahaina. These students I would bring up to the Hyatt so they could learn about the penguins as well as the other animals. The penguins have been there. First time I met them was in 1986. They are so well cared for, and they are definitely an education system for the community of West Maui. We just had Sacred Heart Schools go over there last week so that their students could see the penguins, and they have on more than one occasion. This isn't just for this event. I started bringing students there in 2004, and I truly feel they do such a remarkable job with these penguins and the other animals that they don't only, they are not just entertainment for the people who visit the Hyatt. They are crucially important to the children and to the families of West Maui, especially since this fire. That's what kept a lot of these kids going who were staying at the Hyatt during that time. And they also took in all their animals. So they're very, very animal oriented.
Thank you, Diane. Could you wrap it up?
I strongly hope that you will vote yes. I wish you could see the picture. I don't know what I'm supposed to check, but if you saw where these penguins are located, frankly, we should all live so well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks. Anyone else from the public or in the room wish to give testimony? No, we'll move on to board discussion, and it's Jimmy Gomes.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to support this with reservations, but with the following questions. We see a huge decline of this African penguins, and I don't dispute the care and stewardship that the Hyatt Maui would give them. But the comment I have is I have to agree with Dr. Alan Allison about wouldn't it be better to feature native species on the hotels, because we have a lot of tourists that come, and also the local clientele that would come, the kids and so forth, but having some local species to showcase that. And Dr. Allison said, due to climate change, the reduced availability of the food, the special food that these African penguins come, what would it be down the road for these penguins if you have the reduced capacity of these food? What's the longevity of it? And the other side of it is, for the last 5 to 14 years, they've been having a bad reproduction episode of these penguins. So why, you want to do it, I can see the reason why you want to do it. But I'm saying, for me, I'd like to see more of a native species. There's two doctors, Dr. Reed and Dr. Wright. There was no response. Why is that?
During the time, sorry, this is Jessica speaking. During that time, I know Dr. Wright was out of state, I believe, because she works at UH and she went to visit family possibly. I did reach out to both of them, but I didn't get any response back. I did leave multiple messages on their phone to see if we could get anything, but I think, and Dr. Reed had reached out to me a little too late, and I believe he was also out of state at the time.
All right, and then, you know, I see that was presented to us, all the i's, all the t's have been crossed, but it's just my manao and what I feel, so that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Jimmy. Dr. Gerwal?
Yeah, I want to know where these 4 penguins are actually coming from. They are currently where are they located?
So currently, they are interested in receiving the penguins from Metro Richmond Zoo located in Virginia. So those 4 penguins will be imported from Virginia.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question real quick. Is there any place else in the 50 states, not besides Maui, that has these African penguins and that are thriving or making a comeback?
And I mean, I can only answer for Hawaii, but I know currently Honolulu Zoo does have penguins, the black-footed penguins. They are also with the AZA. They're accredited with AZA as well. So they're also part of the conservation of, you know, most times when you're AZA accredited, it's all towards conservation of the species. And they do match up the penguins. So genetically, they have to do a perfect match with these penguins in order for them to be imported in.
Jimmy, can you help us with the definition of thriving?
Well, meaning the reproduction rate, you know, because we're having a problem here. The Hyatt is having a problem reproduction, you know, due to its genetic relateness, right? So like inbreeding or line breeding. So my thought process is there any place else that is thriving in a sense where you have a lot more conception rate, you've got production, they're bringing back this species? Besides Hawaii.
I can let Povey speak if she has any information, but for specifically Hyatt, because they are on the list of restricted B and they haven't been imported since, you know, early 90s, you know, they haven't imported penguins since. So these penguins have been there, are part of the genetic family that were previously brought in back in, you know, 1990, 1992, and these are basically the offsprings and generations after that. So, you know, it's like, unfortunately, it is the inbreeding portion as well as there's no genetic vitality for them to reproduce. There are attempts, but it doesn't seem like they're able to produce any viable offspring. But if Povey wants to answer a little bit more on that, you know, she has a lot of information as well.
Yeah, I would be happy to address a number of things. So regarding your question on food productivity, we actually source our food for the penguins. It's capelin from the Atlantic coast, which is a sustainable stock. We are leaving other species of fish for the wild counterparts in South Africa. Regarding your question about native species and housing those, we actually do work with several different native species organizations, including Maui seabirds. We also work with Maui forest birds to help as far as education goes. But again, because the numbers are so low on Hawaii, that's not our goal. It would be to house those for display. We would rather present them as a form of education. Regarding where
excuse me, how do you do that in form of education, just with pictures?
We have an interactive touch screen that was put together by Hamline University, so people can learn a little bit more about our native birds. We also put on community seminars. So in November, we did a Lights Out for Seabirds campaign with Maui Nui Seabirds. We do summer talks that guests are invited to come. So interactive talks with not only our guests, but also our community. We do things like World Penguin Day, World Ocean Day, and we're working with local organizations on that. We also have a sign where people can donate if they choose to. So these are, we really want to stay involved with local organizations, highlight native species, but we can do this through the education of African penguins. So people that have an understanding of what an endangered African penguin is going through can also relate to what our Hawaiian native birds are going through.
Okay.
Regarding your question about where the penguins are coming from, Metro Richmond Zoo is one of the most successful African penguin programs in the world. We not only reached out to them, but the curator of the zoo actually came to Maui. He took a tour of our facility and gave approval of our program. So that really means a lot to us. As far as all of their regulations, they have one of the strictest standards of any of the zoos I know regarding any avian flus, any avian malarias. So we really did our homework, and we want our penguins to come from a strong genetic stock, but also be as healthy as possible coming here. So we really respect all the rules that are in place. We know that these rules are higher than any pet birds or anything else coming in, and we stand behind that. We want to work with you to make sure that this is a very safe procedure, because we care about our penguins, but we care about our native birds as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board discussion? Oh, Dr. Grewal.
Yeah, I just want to also know what is the economic benefit to the hotel? Is there any information on that they could present?
May I answer that?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so as far as economic benefit, we don't charge for anything. So not only is our penguin and animal program open to our guests, but it's open to the public as well. So any guests that want to come in, whether they're staying at a different resort or they live here on Maui or are visiting, they're welcome to come in. We don't charge for any of our wildlife tours, our penguin presentations. We do school education. So we have classrooms that come into our program. There's no charge for that as well.
Thank you for that response.
Thank you.
Looking at the board, any other board discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals?
Hi, this is Jimmy. I vote in favor with reservations.
Thank you, Jimmy. Okay, with that, we're
Chair.
going to go to, yes.
Chair, this is Diane. I also have very strong reservations about approving this.
Okay, so we're gonna go with the roll call vote on this, okay? Starting with Dr. Grewal. Dr. Grewal, we're taking a roll call vote.
Yeah, I support.
Right, we're taking the vote now. Objections,
For or against, Doc?
Say that again, James.
Are you for or against? That's all I want to know.
For.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy, and Dr. Grewal. Mark Takimoto from DBET.
Aye.
Thank you. Diane had voted aye with reservations, strong reservations. Nathaniel Oswald from Maui County member.
Approve.
Thank you. Fred Cowell, Kauai member.
Aye.
Randy Cabral at large.
Aye.
Ed Young, member at large. And Young. Okay.
My hand's dropped.
Excused. Jimmy Gomes was aye with reservations. And chair votes aye. Motion is carried with unanimous 2 with reservations. Thank you. Moving on to the next and last item, Thank you, just, Plant Industry Division, Plant Quarantine Branch, request for review of the petition from Andrea Kawabata, University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience, excuse me, C.F.R. to initiate administrative rulemaking and rule amendment to chapter 4-72 Hawaii Administrative Rules, HAR, to designate the islands of Kauai, Molokai, and Lanai as coffee berry borer infested areas. Is there a motion to hear the request?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Second?
Second, Jimmy.
Thank you, Fred and Jimmy. Presentation by Stan.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. My name is Jonathan Ho. I am the Plant Quarantine Branch Manager. So I basically, Ms. Kawabata has petitioned the board to initiate rulemaking to designate the islands of Kauai, Molokai, and Lanai as coffee berry borer infested. And this is to facilitate movement of coffee materials between islands and to basically kind of create some equity, knowing that CBB has been detected basically throughout the state. Procedurally, a petition needs to be approved or denied within 30 days of receipt. And the department issued a procedural denial and is bringing it back up before the board for discussion since it was a procedural denial. And I'll kind of get into the, I guess the ways forward for this particular petition, because it's a little, I guess, procedurally technical. We have proposed language for rulemaking if the board should only want to designate the islands as infested as Ms. Kawabata has proposed. And with some proposed language in section 2. Ultimately, from a procedural standpoint, well, actually, maybe I guess from a technical standpoint or scientific standpoint, the department does not dispute, I guess, the information, but there are procedural standards that need to be met in order for rulemaking to occur, particularly review at the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals prior to rulemaking. However, 472 4.5, actually, I don't know what the section is now because it's been changed, but enables the board to designate areas as being infested. And that process obviously is quicker, but it does still require a small review prior to coming back before the board. Doing so would basically designate every single island as infested with CBB, and for all intents and purposes, make the regulation moot. The regulation was designed obviously to prevent the movement of CBB from an infested area to a non-infested area. And, you know, from procedurally, the department relies on, you know, systematic surveys to determine how widespread infestations are. And, you know, with you know, PPC being very small, we haven't really, I haven't seen that. So again, hence the kind of the branch's denial of, you know, of immediate rulemaking. That being said, you know, obviously there's been testimony in support, and because this regulation is designed to protect industry, if industry does want to repeal the rule, the branch suggests that industry submit another petition to repeal the rule, not just to designate these specific islands as infested. Inter-island movement would still be subject to general inspection. If commodities were, or, you know, plants and or beans found to be infested with a pest, obviously they would be subject to treatment before they would be certified. But it would remove obviously the quarantine requirements, some of the mitigations that were designed for infested to infested, and it would get rid of the permitting. And again, we would kind of defer to industry on that. And ultimately, right, we're recommending denial of immediate rulemaking without going through the standard procedure. Obviously, subcommittee and advisory committee. However, should the board or should the board want the branch to do it, we will go through, work with Ms. Kawabata to go through the quarantine expansion, and obviously, should there be a petition for repeal of the rule, obviously we'll go through that process, but the quarantine expansion will enable, for all intents and purposes, the movement of coffee plants infested to infested without the 1 year restriction. And I think Ms. Kawabata is available for questions, and thank you very much.
So I'm gonna, just for purposes of clarification, Jonathan, could you simplify the motion that, from what I understand, Andrea's request was denied because of a procedural situation.
Right.
However, you're suggesting that if the industry wants to repeal the rule, they have a procedure and it's gonna take 1 year?
Yeah, so there's two things. So what Andrea has requested is to initiate rulemaking to designate the islands as infested. So that's the regular rulemaking process, takes a year, right? The board has an ability to do it quicker, and that can be done. Okay, so that's not rulemaking proper. And that would accommodate what Ms. Kawabata wants, and obviously the board can direct us to do that, because that's a separate issue from rulemaking, technically. The repeal of the rule right now is not on the table. Nobody has issued a petition for rule repeal. I think some of the testimony did suggest it, and obviously, right, as this regulation is designed for industry, if industry wants it to be repealed, they should bring it up, not the regulatory agency saying we're just going to get rid of it because we feel like it.
Testimony suggested it, and how long will that process?
And that's the rulemaking. That's the traditional rulemaking process, right? However long it takes. But the ability to move CLR resistant plants once the islands are designated, could be done in a month or so.
Okay.
A month or two or so. Because that's a pretty quick process. It wouldn't take a year. And if we're delayed for whatever reason, or you can't get the governor sign, whatever the issue is with regards to the repeal, you can essentially not bypass. You can accommodate the 1 year quarantine, which I think this petition really seeks to address, because there really isn't a way around it currently in the rules.
Okay. I think that's a little clearer.
Yeah, it's like a weird procedural technicality, and I think the reason why we're being very technical is that plant quarantine is a regulatory branch. We don't just say we're not going to do regs. That's not the way a regulatory branch should work. Your rules are on the books. You should enforce them until they're not enforceable, and obviously there's a process to do that. That's kind of what we're trying to kind of move through with this petition.
Thank you, Jonathan. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony? Public would be.
Yes,
Yes.
Hawai Coffee Orchard. Please state your name and organization and limit your testimony to 2 minutes, please.
If you're talking, we can't hear you.
You
Hi.
are muted.
Hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Bronson Yadal. I'm testifying on behalf of Kauai Coffee Company. As many of you know, we're currently the largest single origin contiguous coffee producer within the state. Just a little backstory. We first discovered CBB in 2020 in the northernmost portion of our farm. that then spread to a farm-wide presence in a span of 18 months. The scope of that spread is basically 4.9 miles west to east and 3.3 miles north to south. Most of us in this meeting know that CBB is a very poor flyer, but it must be an expert hitchhiker to span our farm in 18 months in the entire state of Hawaii in less than 10 years. Since 2022, our operation has endured CBB damage rates on our total harvest of 15.6, 18, and an expected 15% for the 2022, 23, and 24 crop years respectively. Some of our fields have reached as much as 94% CBB presence. In my opinion, a very pronounced presence of CBB in all major growing regions of Hawaii shouldn't be disputed at this point. CBB is a devastating statewide issue. Speaking for Kauai coffee and Kauai as a whole, expanding the state's designation of infested to include Kauai, Lanai, and Molokai would expedite the exchange of much needed resources, materials, and collaboration to combat both CBB and CLR alike within the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other hands.
No other hands from the public. Board discussion. Recognizing Fred Cole.
Yeah, good morning, Chair. Thank you for that presentation. Thank you, Jonathan, for what you put forward. I'm going to do my best to try to clarify what you put out. We know that CBB is across the entire state. The degree to which it's affecting the islands that are currently covered by this rule is not yet been determined, but I would imagine is indisputable. And if my understanding is correct, we're looking for the fastest way forward to reduce the amount of time it takes to get materials between islands. Based on that, whether it's a repeal of the regulation itself or, which I believe what Andrea is asking for, is to get the islands designated as infested, whatever's fastest is what we need to be working toward. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Did you, Parwinder, Dr. Grewal?
I'd like to hear from Dr. Andrea Kawabata, because I had no knowledge of this being presented here. So she has not discussed this issue with me. So I would like her to make her case as to what she is thinking and what is the issue here.
Andrea, are you available to respond?
Good morning, Chair and members.
Good morning. There you are.
So this came about, I've been working with the industry to distribute our coffee leaf rust resistant plant materials throughout the state. And we have had requests from Kauai to send plants over there. And in talking with Department of Agriculture's plant quarantine, there is still a 1-year quarantine in which the plants would need to be quarantined for a year before they can be released to the grower. And knowing, you know, from all of the farm visits that I've done there, how extensive CBB is on that island. I did speak with growers on the different islands, except for Lanai. I did speak to the grower on Molokai as well, you know, asking about including Molokai, Lanai, and Kauai into the rules as infested. They were not opposed to it. And so as an individual, I wanted to take that step forward for the industry to see if it was possible, knowing that there was the ability for the public to oppose this if they did not want it as well. I did not want to change the rules and repeal it because I did not feel that it was my position to do that. That is for industry to do. But by including Kauai, Molokai, and Lanai as CBB infested, it would help myself, it would help Park, even USDA, and anybody who is trying to distribute their coffee leaf rust resistant plants or other coffee plant materials, seeds as such. It would help everyone get their plants statewide without needing this 1-year quarantine, because we know that CBB is on island. HDOA already has had announcements of CBB on all 3 of these islands, and so HDOA is also aware that CBB is present on these islands, although I understand that Jonathan doesn't know how extensive the infestations are throughout the islands. So I took it upon myself to try and move some of this forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Dr. Grewal, go ahead.
Yeah, it was hard for me to hear you, Andrea, but what I got is that, clarification. Is that you talking about the research material being moved around, or what are you after?
So this is to help anybody who is trying to distribute coffee reproductive propagative materials from a non-infested island, from a CBB infested island to what is considered currently a non-infested island. Not just us, but Park, USDA, and any other entity who would like to move coffee plants, seeds, and other propagative materials throughout the state.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Dr. Grewal. Any other board discussion? Seeing none, I do have a question for Jonathan. So, to the point of Brett and the other board members, in order to expedite this rule, well, we'd have to change the motion, of course, but if this board says it's okay, we're going to designate the other islands as infested, okay, does the board have that power?
Not based, I mean, I'll defer to Jen, but my guess is you probably can't. But no, but okay, well, I think so.
Session if you want to do it.
Well, so the way the rules are written is that the section has a very specific provision that you need to consult with people prior to the action being taken. Okay, so that consultation hasn't happened according to the rules. So so my understanding is that needs to happen. Once that happens, we can again make another submittal, bring it back for the board, and the board can then make that designation, yay or nay. Because that is purely for all intents and purposes, purely an administrative function, that could, I'd have to go check, but that would be like a month or 2.
Okay.
That wouldn't be years or a year or whatever, like the regular rulemaking. And and the board can direct the branch to go, to complete that process as soon as possible and bring it back before the board for the board's determination.
Okay, thank you. There is language that I'm supposed to read to go into executive session, which I don't think I have in front of me.
Or I mean, I guess what it boils down to is I think that because that requirement is there, it hasn't happened. So I don't see how that I don't believe that the board can do it at this time.
I'll defer to Jen.
But sorry.
So thus far, we just asked because I didn't come prepared for this.
Okay.
So there is a request, the request was denied, we bring it to the board for the board's consideration.
Yes.
Feel that the board shouldn't do it until it goes through the advisory committee and all those other steps that you normally take for rules.
No. So
It says in the.
right. So there is, so I guess to effectuate exactly what Ms. Kawabata has provided.
Yes.
That's the regular rulemaking, right? Advisory subcommittee, P&A, proposed rules go to board, public hearing, Okay.
Yes.
So 472, gosh, I don't even know what the new section is, but there's a way for the board, basically through board order, to expand the quarantine designations. And that's essentially an administrative function. It doesn't have to go through rulemaking, and that can be done. And again, it's designed to kind of manage spreads of quarantine so that you can, move stuff as it sees fit. And, but I know that that has a consultation requirement. And that
With the
has,
industry.
it's people with relevant expertise. And which hasn't occurred.
Okay, all right, thank you, Jonathan. You're very knowledgeable on the rule.
So if the board just, let's say, wanted to consider this, what would be the next step? Rather than just grant, because I know you want us to not approve the request.
Right.
So what is the step that you're recommending?
So
Is
that,
it this thing on the bottom where you
yeah,
say?
direct the branch to basically
Okay.
go through the process of the 472,
This is
4.5.
what he's recommending. You deny the original request. So, and
What
I'm
is on
to be
page
honest,
C25?
so to be honest, I'm not sure if the motion is to approve the request or to approve your recommendation. So I
Oh,
guess we
yeah.
would have to have the board members clarify what the live motion is in front of us. But
The fastest way possible.
yeah, so. But the recommendation of the branch is to deny the request. Of the letter request, and then to instead. Direct the branch to work with the petitioner to complete an advisory review.
For the 472, 4.5 process.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the request for an expeditious decision on this matter is, I think, on the table right now, but what we're really voting on is the motion. And the motion was for the petition, so.
Was it for the petition or was it for the recommendation? Because they just said they.
It's review of the petition from University of Hawaii. Yeah.
Right, so, okay, so, sorry,
Okay, so
it's probably the technicality of my brain, on paper. So, because Ms. Kawabata is asking for initiation of rulemaking to expand the quarantine, okay? That's gonna take a year, and I think clearly the board members do not want that to happen. So, the branch is recommending that the board deny the petition as it's written because they don't want a 1-year process. And the branch is suggesting that the board direct the branch to go through, to work with Ms. Kawabata to use the quarantine expansion process that's in 472 expeditiously and come back before the board so that the board can make a determination on the rest of the islands being infested while we wait for industry potentially to repeal or to petition to repeal the rule. So there's like kind of 3 things. But I guess the repeal for the rule is, I think, that's a side note, I guess, for this discussion.
It's no longer 4.5.
Yeah.
Online, it still is the old rule.
Okay, so it's 4.5 then.
Oh, is that the one? Okay.
Designation of expansion, of quarantine expansion.
areas.
Yes, that's the one. So the number 1 requires, right?
See when it's got adopted, so I can make sure. No, this is 2012.
Yeah, that's the old one.
Okay.
But then the new section, the new reg basically just renumbers it. That's all it does.
Okay.
So that requirement for the consultation is still there.
Okay. Okay, I see. So just don't say 4 point.
Yeah,
Instead talk about
the
14
4 pursuant to the process in 4-72.
And then you believe that that's the most expedient way to do this.
If there's a quicker way, I'm not aware of it.
So that's the recommendation.
Okay, and the quicker way would be 1 month, but not a year.
Yeah, it would be, month to a couple, depending on, yeah.
Okay, so do we have to change the motion?
If this motion is to approve the request, then yes, I would withdraw.
Okay,
I mean, unless that's what you want to do, but if that's not the recommendation of the branch.
the motion
I
was
think
made
Fred
by
has a comment.
Fred, recognizing.
I would like to
Fred-
withdraw the motion and make sure we come in
Oh,
clean.
that was quick. Thank you. Is the person who seconded also have to withdraw? No, okay. So the question to the board right now is the motion to withdraw.
No, the question is, now there's no motion.
Oh,
okay. Because it's withdrawn.
All right.
So someone needs to make a motion.
Yeah, so To do it the quickest way possible, the board would deny Ms. Kawabata's petition to initiate rulemaking to designate the respective islands as infested, and to direct the branch to go through the administrative designation process in 4-72.
Okay,
To pursue a quarantine expansion.
To pursue a quarantine expansion to designate
So,
Kauai, Molokai, and Lanai as infested.
so if somebody could make a
So
motion.
So
moved.
moved.
So, second.
Thank you, Jimmy.
thank you.
Okay, okay, so that was, who was it, Colin?
Colin, Jimmy.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Me, second.
Yeah, moved and seconded, can we just?
Yeah, because I mean, that was they
Yeah.
heard it, they moved it.
Okay.
So moved it.
Are there any objections or recusals? Hearing none, the motion to, whatever, is
Motion to
approved.
deny and then to direct.
Motion to
the-
deny, then direct the plant coordinating branch to take the action is unanimously approved. Thank you. All right, that was the last
Expeditiously.
action. Expeditiously, thank you, Fred, adding that. Moving on to the last item, which is new business, no old business, by the way. Moving on to new business is the invasive species update that we have monthly from Jonathan. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, real quick. So I guess we'll talk about Act 231. There's been a lot of movement. We have a systems approach, pest management for 800 grand to UH. We're working on the contract. For brown tree snake, we're getting 150 traps for statewide distribution. Equipment, supplies, hooks, tongs. So we're looking for a vehicle and additional training to expend the $240,000. There's a pest diagnostics RFP for $240,000 that closes at the end of the month. There was a $1.1 million contract for HDM contractors for removal and for cutting down and removing of dead trees on public land, dead coconut trees on public lands. That have identified by that have been identified by the department on Hawaii, Oahu, Kauai, and Maui. We're gonna have to work with them, I think, for coordination on that. There was a RFP issued in November of 24 for green waste management. We weren't able to come up with an agreement with the bidder. We're reissuing that RFP. The compost reimbursement program of $400,000 was kind of opened out in October 2024. It's ongoing until May 2025. 1.1 million was awarded to Rent-A-Kill Terminex for LFA treatments of residential sites determined to have LFA by the department for Oahu, Kauai, Maui, and Hawaii Island. We're finalizing the contract. There was $74,355 for Koki. We have spent $8,000 on citric acid, and we're basically going to use the rest of the funds for citric acid purchases for treatments, particularly on Oahu and Kauai. The biosecurity facility planning, ACOM, was awarded about approximately $400,000 for a design development planning document for a modular containment facility. We're working on finalizing the contract. There was $300,000 for rosering parakeets, and $150,000 went to Kauai County. City and County of Honolulu declined their $150,000, so we're working on a supplemental contract toward the additional $150,000 to Kauai County. There was about $360,000 for two-line spittlebug for UH, and there is another RFP for about $240,000 for management on Hawaii Island. That's going to be closing at the end of the month. The positions, 31 of the 42 have PDs, and we're working with HR to kind of finalize the processes so that we can get them out for recruitment. The department maintains its Koki, LFA, and CRB responses on Oahu. A lot of work with that. And then legislatively, Wednesday, there's 4 bill, actually, well, Monday, there were a couple bills, one for beekeeping, to limit liability, and some limiting of information distribution to increase registration, and funding for the CRB, short-term funding for the CRB response program. And then tomorrow, there are going to be 4 bills kind of related to biosecurity. One is HB 427, which basically renames the Department of Agriculture, Department of Agriculture Biosecurity, creates a deputy position for biosecurity, renames the biosecurity form, the ag form to the biosecurity form, allows the department with concurrence of the governor to do declare biosecurity emergencies. SB 252 basically provides the department with administrative search or administrative inspection authority for a lot of things, people, passengers, cargo, including now inter island, and it makes all the penalties. Well, it creates civil penalties to manage some of the administrative search issues. SB 251 creates a placarding program, which is kind of similar to the DOH one. And should the department not implement it, allows the counties to do it. And then SB 562 basically creates a nursery registry program to regulate the sale of nursery stock in the state. And there's a bunch of others, SB 1100 and stuff like that, but those are the ones that are, I guess, on the docket for now.
I'd like to add to that House Bill 427 also changes the name of this body.
Oh, yes, the Board of Agriculture and Biosecurity as well. Yes, that's correct.
That's on the docket for tomorrow. So we will then be the Board of Agriculture and Biosecurity. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Board of Agriculture and Biosecurity, should the bill pass. And I see Jimmy's hand up.
Yes, Jonathan, do we have anything for two-line spittlebug?
So is there a bill? I have not seen one specifically, but I know that the department or the department is looking to I guess make the Act 231 funds be recurring, and there was 600,000, I believe, for two-line spittlebug management, and I don't see that not being a recurring thing moving forward.
Can we get an update on that so our stakeholders out there in the Big Island are, aware that this is still ongoing?
Not to suggest, but where is the bill? It's in the governor's budget.
Yeah.
Right, so if you support the governor's budget, should you choose to do that, the recurring funding line in there would be for a two-line spittlebug as well.
All right.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, with no other actions, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Seconded.
Second. Okay, that was Fred. There should be board discussion, but I will let that go. Company vote. Any refusals, objections? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.
Aloha, have a great week.
Have a great week, everybody. Oh yeah, the next meeting is February 25th, 2025, 9 AM, February 25th, Tuesday. Thank you.